Think things can make you happy? Think again. Michael Harris joins us from Vancouver with a hard look at our consumer lifestyle and how wasteful it is in his new book, All We Want, Buying the Life We Cannot Buy. Nice to talk to you this morning.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, very well. You spent a lot of time in a landfill for this book.
Yeah, well, in a way, we all do, don't we?
Yes, but it was an eye-opener for you, and I know I've done stories at landfills, so I've gone and walked around in all of our garbage. So it kind of really turns you off of buying things, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this book began. It didn't begin at a landfill. I should be honest. It began with kind of a sense of bitterness about not having what my parents had, about a sense of kind of frustration with what our generation could achieve versus all the generations before. We had been given this promise of eternal growth that didn't pan out, and then when I wanted to find out why that didn't pan out and what other stories there might be about life, that's what eventually led me to the landfill, because I needed to understand what this whole consumer culture was and why it was such a failed story.
Right, because you think about how many things we buy that we've got that instant gratification, and then a few days, maybe a few months later, we're like, why did I buy that? Why? I didn't need that. But it's that instant, it's that kind of instant happiness, but you discuss so many ways that we could be lifelong happy. Right.
I mean, it's a book about our search for a good life outside of consumer culture. That's the idea. Instead of the instant gratification or the dopamine rush, looking at things like craft or the sublime or taking care of other people, these things that are really very old narratives about what life can be, but that we, in a way, have to rediscover.
Let's talk about craft then, because you, while writing this book, you kind of hand wrote it yourself. You did it the old-fashioned way with pencil and paper, and that was very important.
It was. I mean, I think labor matters, and that's something that we forget about in our consumer culture. So it was important for me to actually do it the long way. And there were a lot of pencils, a lot of erasers involved, and it probably took me a lot longer than it would have otherwise, but it allowed me to actually discover craft again for myself. And in the research for the book, I was also spending time with like woodworkers and people building canoes out of birch bark and things like that. And I discovered that writing could also be a craft of that kind and bring me back to kind of home base.
You talk about the sublime and simply being in nature. We hear so many people talk about, like I myself, I love to go for nature baths, so just a walk in the woods kind of things. And just seeing that, the life around us and how sublime it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you spend some time under the stars or looking at the ocean, your interest in material goods starts to seem very, very small. So it can help us walk away from consumer culture in that way, but it can also give us something so much larger than consumer culture. So the sublime has a funny way of making your life seem smaller, but also somehow larger because it connects you to the infinite.
And then care connects us to the ones we love the most, right? And that is something that we've all learned during the pandemic, whether we can be with someone we care about or have to take care of someone who's got sick. It is the most important thing, I think.
It is. I mean, it makes you realize that you're connected to people and not to things. And so in the chapter that I write about care, it's actually me watching my husband as he's taking care of his mother, who is suffering from dementia. So the book really, it starts off at a landfill, as you say, and it starts off with just a kind of a mess of things, and it brings you, hopefully by the end of the book, to a much more human place.
The things that really matter. Michael, thank you for joining us and talking more about your book, which is out now, All We Want, Building the Life We Cannot Buy. Been talking to Michael Harris. Thank you.
Thank you.